Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program, and my guest today is Bernard Segal, and our topic is answering the call. It is Bernard and my great privilege to dedicate our program today to his late father, Norman Segal, a much-loved husband, father, and friend. Bernard, he would be so proud of the man that his son has become and the incredible work that you do. I have known Bernard since he was a baby. We met when we were all living in the same block of flats in Germiston. And Bernard and my son Norman are lifelong friends. Today, we're going to be talking about Bernard's role at Hatsola, and he's going to tell us a bit about Hatsola, which he joined as a volunteer in 2005 and is now a special projects manager, infection prevention and control manager. And Bernard, welcome.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks very much for having me on your show.
Pleasure. Bern, tell me why you actually decided to join Hatsola.
So in 2005, Hatsola put out an advert that they were looking for responders. And I've always had a passion for the medical side of things, but for whatever reason, call it my inability to sit and study when I was at school, and whatever else life handed me through its various stages, medical school wasn't really an option. So when this opportunity came about, it was a way to get into the medical field as well as a way to give back to the community. And I grabbed the opportunity and I've never looked back. You mentioned my late dad, and as you both know, he was a man of few words, but of lots of action. And he instilled in myself and my sister growing up that it's very important to do for others. It's not about standing up there and having your name in lights, rather be in the background and just do. And much to my mom's horror as a youngster, even before my bar mitzvah, growing up in Germiston, being a small town, Sunday afternoons often meant that there was a funeral or an unveiling. I got schlepped along because he was part of the Chevra Kadisha. And I sat there writing receipts because my mother made him swear that she wouldn't let me do anything else. And so I suppose my work in giving to the community or in giving back started in those days. And once I got involved with Hatsola and became active within the organization in more than just the medical response, but more in the background, the back side of it and the operations and logistics side, it just became a huge opportunity to give and to do and to enable. And it was probably a dream come true. And since then, it's grown and grown, and so has the passion for all the various projects and other things that I've taken on.
You know, Bernard, when I think about your dad, as you say, actually showing you in many ways the way, you know, to reach out to others. And I know that he and Leon, my husband, both worked for the Chev in Germiston. And I think you're quite right. You know, watching somebody older than you, an elder who you respect, doing something does ignite a spark in you. And you have always been a caring person, always. And you would have made a wonderful doctor, but already you actually are a first responder. in 2007, you became operations director. Tell me about that.
So the opportunity to come onto the board of Hatsolo was presented, and the Hatsolo was doing, call it a reshuffle from within. Our then CEO, Brian Jude, was looking to step back a bit and looking to bring fresh and young blood onto the board to take over and transform Hatsolo and grow it into the future. And a group of us that had recently qualified 2 years before were given the opportunity. And we stepped up, and guys with the various backgrounds were given positions that suited their backgrounds. I came from a computer and IT logistics and purchasing background, and the logistics was a natural fit, and took over in that position. And we grew as a board. We grew the organization from a small first responder type organization with a little ambulance fleet up to a service today which is recognized both countrywide and worldwide for its achievements. We have six ambulances, 4 response cars. We have an active team both day and night, over the weekends, 24/7, 365. Our equipment level is probably among the highest in the country, if not on the African continent. And our responders are recognized for their level of training and their competency. And it's a pleasure.
Let's just talk a bit about Hatsolo. It is a non-profit rescue operation organization, and it services different areas. So tell me a bit about Hatsolo.
Okay, so Hatsolo was started in South Africa 20 years ago, registered as a non-profit organization. And in the early days, we were just what they called a first responder service. We didn't have ambulances. So we would try and get a responder to scene as quickly as possible.
What, in your own cars?
In our own cars, in our own cars, with our own equipment, and basically cover the gap in time between when the emergency occurred and when either a state ambulance or a private ambulance service such as Metcalfe 911 or Yo 24, until they arrived on scene to then take over the management and transportation of the patient. And as the needs grew within the community and the changes within the country, the need and the recognition that we needed our own ambulances to cover that gap. And then also to fulfill, as we saw the slide or the increase in those time periods, the necessity to increase the level of training, the level of equipment, the life-saving ability was recognized and put in place. So in the old days, the guys ran around with a little bottle of a product called Emox. It was a plastic bottle with a powder that you added water, you shook it up, and it gave you 3 minutes of oxygen. Wow,
is that so?
That's 20 years ago. We now have 5 state-of-the-art ambulances we have response cars with ventilators and defibrillators and autopulses, and we have equipment that almost none of the private ambulance services have, and maybe the odd academic hospital has 1 or 2 just for training. And those are our standard equipment on our vehicles.
And would you say that Hatsolo works alongside other emergency responders?
We definitely do. It's taken time, and most of the ambulance services within our areas of operation know us. We are there for our community, and where we can for the greater community, we do assist. And often when we arrive on scene and there are Jewish patients and the other ambulance services have arrived first, by law, that patient is theirs. A lot of other ambulance services, the guys have got targets they have to meet, numbers that they have to transport, whereas being a non-profit, that doesn't come into our focus, which changes things. And we often say to them, guys, they are our patients, they're our community, do you mind? And they're happy to go with that.
Okay, we'll get back to that.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program, and I'm back with Bernard Segal. And if you'd like to contact us, please do so on SMS 34519 or telegram us on 061 895 1019. Bernard, we're back again together. I see that in 2017, you took off 4 months to study full time. What were you doing in that time?
So I took a decision that I was running my own business at the time, and due to whatever changes that were happening in the industry, it was perhaps time to look at a new chapter in life. And in discussions with my family, specifically my wife, an opportunity arose to study intermediate life support, which is the next level of training up. And the only way to do it is 4 months. At that stage was 4 months full-time study. And I grabbed the opportunity with the blessing of my family in Atsola, and I took the step and stepped back into the classroom as the oldest person in the college, being older than my lecturers and even the admin staff. So it was rather interesting.
You came with a lot of knowledge.
That I did. I came with, at that stage, almost 14 years of experience on the road. And it was great. It was a huge learning experience. It was a huge learning curve, having to sit in lectures Monday to Friday from 8 to 5. And then when we finished the first 2 months of lectures and midterm exams, we then went into 2 months of road pracs, Sunday to Friday, 6 to 6.
Wow.
Road pracs, hospital pracs, and hospital shifts in the various departments, gaining the necessary skills and experience before we're allowed to write our final exams and then qualify and work on the road at a higher level with greater protocols and more drugs, etc., within our scope.
Wow. So you qualified then as an intermediate life support medic. So you were almost fulfilling in so many ways. It's funny how we often sort of think, well, if only I was a doctor. But in actual fact, this is your calling. This is where you're meant to be. You're not meant to be a GP and in an office. I think you get the stimulation by being able to jump in an ambulance and face an emergency. Do you?
I believe so. The lights and sirens, in the early days, it is the adrenaline rush.
I'm sure.
But with years of experience, it's actually your safety features getting to the emergency, and it's also time to process what's ahead. So when we get dispatched to an emergency, we are given an address, we are given a time. Basically, the time is now. We have either a male or a female patient, an age if it's available. The nature of the emergency may be a small little history or what has happened, and whether the patient is conscious and breathing. And that is all we know.
Now, for all the listeners who are just tuning in, Bernard is with Hatsola, the nonprofit organization, the emergency response medical organization, and we are talking about his role there and how he actually feels being in that role. So is it fulfilling to be at Hatsola and to be able to do what you do?
Very much so. When I finished and qualified, back into negotiation with the family, and then had the opportunity to take up a full-time position at Hatsola. Hatsola is made up of both volunteers and full-time staff. The full-time staff carry the day shift, to put it simply, basically the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then 6 p.m. until the next morning is carried by the volunteers, and the weekends are carried by our volunteers and the full-time team. We volunteer after hours as well. So I would pretty much say I'm living my dream. I'm living the life. I can talk for myself when I say it's pretty easy to get up in the morning, and most mornings start at 5 or before 5. Love coming to work, love what I do, which makes it very easy to do what I do. It's not the prettiest job. We get to see some of the uglier and the sadder side of life, but we also get to see the happy sides of life. We get to see the beautiful sides of things. It all depends on sometimes how your patients see things, do they see life with a glass half full or half empty. It's taught me that being in this industry and working with Atsola, we're not in control. There's definitely a higher power. God runs this world. And if we are meant to succeed, we succeed. And when it's your time no matter what resources and what is available at that time. Especially now in the time of Elul, we get to see the words of Unatana Tokef, who will live and who will die, and who by water, who by fire, who by the sword. We get to see all those various things in this field that we carry out.
And you know, Bernard, just knowing from my own experience when I've had to phone Hatsola, there's a great sense of almost relief when Hatsola arrives. I remember having to phone in an emergency. And when Hatsola arrived, there was such a sense of, wow, I'm being held in this situation. It was a situation I was called to. And it was just such a relief to hand over to more qualified people who could help. And what really helped at the time, because there was quite a bit of hysteria, was the fact that it was the talking. It was the people who responded, their calmness and their actually ability to connect in a calm way while doing what they had to do. And you know, Leo Buscaglia says this: too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have a potential to turn a life around.
Very well.
Isn't that true?
Very true. A small smile, a calm voice. We see it every day, but for us, we're invited as an ambulance crew. We're invited into a family or individual's potential worst day of their lives. And we have a privilege and a responsibility on arriving to treat everyone with respect, to recognize the pain, whether it be physical pain or emotional pain, and assist with that. Assist in comforting the family, assist with comforting and calming the patient, and ensuring that the patient gets the best for what they require at that time. Often we'll argue with the family about a choice of hospitals because the family want to go to the hospital around the corner because that's convenient for them. But it is convenient for visiting routes, but sometimes the patient needs a specific speciality which is better at a further hospital. So the correct treatment for the correct patient at the correct time is always essential.
Absolutely. And I think that there's also a sense of security in that, knowing that you know the different places to go to. But I also wanted to talk about 2019, because it was almost as though you had an intuitive knowledge that something was about to happen. Tell me what happened in 2019 and what you did. You began to study again.
Yeah. So working in the EMS, you find things that start to scratch and itch, and then you start to look a bit deeper. And I worked out, needed to learn some more about infection control and what was going on, and didn't realize the depth of the field. So did a bit of research, and an opportunity arose to do a postgrad certificate in infection control. And I jumped at that. And as you say, Hashem probably had his hand in there somewhere, but graduated at the end of 2019 with a huge source of knowledge, having been trained by the likes of Prof. Duzay from Wits Medical School, who's a professor of microbiology who has a soft spot for the nurses in the nursing world, because he believes that infection control starts right at the lowest level in the medical chain. And so I joined this class of 30-odd students, myself as the only paramedic, and 32 nurses with several years experience, in the dozens of years experience. And not having much background, it was a huge learning curve, but an awesome eye-opener. Wrote exams in the December of 2019, and December 2019, COVID was thrust on us. And being Hatsola, being proactive, we started to look and learn and see what was going on in the world. And we watched the spread as it came throughout the world, and we started to plan. And together with the world not really knowing what COVID was, how it was spread, how it works, we decided we need to draw up a protocol that's going to protect everybody. So being a mix of team, being full-time medics that work at it all day, and volunteers that are doctors, professionals, lawyers, accountants, etc., and businessmen that pick up an ambulance at 6 p.m, drop it back at 6 the next morning, who may or may not have calls in that period. They may do 5 or 6 calls over a month period. Needed to protect them to the same level as the guys that are doing it all day, every day, and are competent at it. So the challenge came in, how do we protect everybody? So thankfully, Hatsola gave us the backing, both emotional as well as material, to put in place PPE, which at that stage became a very, very scarce and expensive commodity. But we protected our guys as if they were treating Ebola to start, because we actually didn't know what we were dealing with. So we treated for a VHF, a viral hemorrhagic fever. And
it was almost like entering the forest and not being able to see where the forest came to an end.
For sure. After speaking to certain people in the EMS, we were told, no, leave it to government or leave it to Netcare 911. And when we contacted Netcare 911 and said, we've been told to leave it to you, they told us, don't you ever do that. We're in the same boat you are. You're going to treat the same patients that we are. And we said, okay, now that we've clarified that, this is how we're going to do it. And on the 20th of March, which was a week before South Africa decided it's time to lock down to level 5.
That's 2020.
2020, on the 20th of March, Hatsola received its first call to transport a COVID-positive patient. This was a French citizen who'd come into the country, working on contract for the Gautrain, and was staying in a hotel in Sandton, had tested positive and had now deteriorated and needed to be transported to hospital.
Was he a Jewish man?
Still to be determined.
Okay. I was just wondering why you were called in.
I think he had friends who knew friends, but at the end of the day, it was a life that needed rescuing, so we stepped up. And when does it happen? As normal, 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, when everyone's gone home.
Are you religious Jews in this mostly religious volunteers and full-time workers in this organization?
So to qualify to work as a volunteer for Hatzola Medical Rescue, you need to be Shomer Shabbos, you need to keep kosher, and Shomer Mitzvahs. That's the standard.
Shomer Shabbos for our listeners who are not Jewish means to keep the Sabbath.
Yeah.
So that's part of the criteria for joining.
That's correct. And one of the main reasons for that is you actually have to know the rules before you can break them. You have to know what you can and can't break and how you can minimize the desecration of the Sabbath so that life is saved, but the Sabbath is still protected, and the balance between that. That being said, when when someone's life is in danger, the Sabbath is cancelled.
That's amazing. And Bernard, tell me about support system. Where do you have a support system that actually debriefs you? If you're needing debriefing?
So we have quite a hands-on management team, and if there is a call that has affected the guys, and everybody is affected differently by different calls. So if we do have a very serious call, there is normally we're all sent on a compulsory debrief to a professional trauma debriefer of our choice, either within the organization or out, as we choose. And then we debrief among ourselves all the time. We talk through our calls. We work it out as a team. Sometimes very difficult to debrief a call when people don't understand the intricacies of the EMS. It has its nuances, frustrations that other people would feel sometimes for us don't even come into consideration, and things that for us are game can make or break things. Some others, what a trauma counselor in their normal day would never come across. So sometimes very difficult to work it in that environment. So we do it ourselves.
We'll get back to that.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Bernard Segal. We're talking about Hatzola, the non-profit organization, medical emergency operation. And right now you're going to be listening to a short YouTube by Brené Brown on empathy. Thank you, Craig.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Bernard Segal. And you can contact us on SMS 34519 or telegram us on 061 895 1019. We are talking about Bernard's role at Hatsola and what Hatsola actually do. And I see a message has come through actually on my phone that asks if we can discuss what Hatsola, all the other roles that Hatsola does. Hatsola Connect, Hatsola Emotional Support Line. Can you go through some of those, please?
Sure, with pleasure. So as we dealt with patients over the years, the need to expand the services grew. So some of those that are mentioned there is Hatsola Connect, which is a telegram-based suicide prevention line and aimed mainly towards the youth. It's an anonymous line where we have a team that man that line 24/7, and they start to initiate once contact is made, and then hand over to professional help.
You've just frozen for a moment. Hello?
I mentioned earlier.
Are you back again? You froze for a moment, Bern.
Terribly sorry. Where did I lose you? So
you have the emotional support and suicide prevention.
So we have a teen suicide prevention line. We also have our CRU, or Crisis Response Unit, which is a unit that was set up after looking at United Hatsola in Israel, who created a unit that responded to emergencies to look after the emotional support and well-being of both the families in crisis during the emergency, as well as the mental health, and ensure the mental stability of the responders. So having a supportive and active board, they recognized this and brought the guys out from overseas to set up and train a team here within South Africa. And they trained the guys in breaking bad news to families. As I mentioned earlier, we step into the worst day of a patient or a family's lives. And sometimes we do have to break the bad news to them and tell them that a loved one has passed on. It's how you do it. It's being there to start, I wouldn't say start the trauma debrief, but just to ground the people and bring in professionals that can then take over to allow the family to begin the process of coming to terms with whatever has happened. And those teams are on standby 24 hours a day. They come out to deal with families and also allow the volunteers then to step back and put a boundary between the medical side and the emotional side, which is very, very important for the longevity of responders. We're also humans. People see us as angels at times, but calls have an impact, and sometimes being able to step back and allow mental professionals to do what they do best really, really helps. So we have our crisis response unit that deals with the traumatic side, and they help with the family, and they help to explain the processes and start the connection, whether it's with the chev or whether it's with the rabbis, whether it's with the trauma departments at the hospitals. to how to bring the children home from school and break the news of what has happened or what has transpired and begin those processes. That is all done by professionals who are on standby to assist us 24/7.
It's amazing.
We have a postnatal depression program that's headed up and run by Sherry Hansen, and I'll be overstepping because that's really not something that I know much about, but I'll give you Sherry's number and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about it. But the truth is...
the truth is what?
In that little clip you played, empathy is feeling with people. And that's who we are. When we're called out, we're treating Eigene. For those who don't speak Yiddish, we're treating our own. The grannies that we pick up off the floor are like our own grannies. And it makes that connection that much easier, but it also makes it that much closer.
Absolutely. And, on that note, I see a message has just come through from my daughter, Shira, in Israel. And she said, I would like to thank Hatzola for helping me through having COVID while I was 8 months pregnant. They kept me and all my family calm. And it's so true, that calmness, that caring. Somebody came twice a day to come and check on her. And then the other thing was that Rabbi Ash was in charge of all of us because we all had COVID, Leon, myself, and Shira. And the one day, my husband Leon was dancing with my little grandchild, and I took a video and sent it into Hatzola. And Bernard, you recognized the garden. Craig is already saying we're going to have to wrap up, and we haven't even begun to talk about the wellness program. How can people get hold of you if they would like to hear a bit more?
To get hold of me personally, either directly through Hatzola, through the office. Otherwise, maybe we could make a time to discuss wellness, because the wellness program is the brainchild of a number of people. I can't take any credit for that, just worked on it. And in and of itself could probably take up an entire program, but it looked after more than 12,000 people during COVID.
That's amazing.
It deserves its own time.
Yes, we'll give it a full time as well. And I also wanted to discuss Hatzola, that the fact that it's around the world, and also that in 2019, Hatzola South Africa joined a relief mission to Beira in Mozambique, and when there was that cyclone on. But I'm being told to go to advert.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm back with Bernard Segal. And I'm being told to wrap up, so I want to just give Hatzola's emergency number. It's 083 222 1818. Bern, you're going to have to just say a couple of words as we end. What would you like to say?
Sure. Just thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you to the community that supports us. At the end of the day, Hatzola is a non-profit organization. We've never charged a single individual since we started treating patients more than 20 years ago. And to enable us to continue doing that, we rely on the good graces of the community to do that. It's our privilege to be there for the community when they need us, and just to thank the community for their support and their encouragement. During COVID, they really looked after us. We would arrive at work and find muffins dropped off, or coffees dropped off, or sandwiches for lunch, because at times there were days we started at 6 a.m. and never saw the base until 5 p.m, except when we were cleaning and scrubbing ambulances in between, and then straight to the next call. So just behind the scenes, there's a lot that goes on, and a huge thank you to the community out there that that enable us to do what we do.
Wonderful. And I would actually like to wish everyone a new year of blessings. And for those of you who will have an empty seat at your table over this festival, my thoughts, and I'm sure Bernard's thoughts, are with you all. All special occasions, loss is more acutely felt during special occasions, and it's very difficult to actually cope with it. So our thoughts are with you, and for everybody, we wish you a new year of many, many blessings and health. And thank you so much, Bernard, for all you do for Hatsola. We will definitely get back to talk about the wellness program, because I know I was treated there as well in it. So I have my own part to share, and I'm sure many other people will as well. Another message has just come through and on my phone, and it just says, thank you so much, Hatsola, for all you do. So thank you, Bernard. Thank you. Thank you,
Sue.
Craig.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Craig. Thank you for listening, everybody.